Well, we're joined now by Hazem AlGhabra, who's a Syrian-born former senior advisor to the US State Department. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us, Hazem. You were born in Damascus, I gather, and I just want to ask you, what was your reaction this time a year ago when you got the news that Bashar al-Assad had fled the country?
Surprised, happy. I mean, I grew up under that regime. Not really much under Bashar Assad's regime. I was in the US most of that time, but under the Assad family regime, it was not a good existence. I mean, growing up, especially as a teenager, in such an oppressive environment, in every way possible. I mean, that oppression leaked into schools, into your daily life, into conversations you have with your own family sometimes. So it was a very happy moment, and really a moment of hope, because for a while we really thought Syria will never change. And now there is a tangible opportunity for tangible change to the better. And we're seeing it happen right now.
Right. I mean, it did look at one point as though Bashar al-Assad was never going to be ousted, and it took a lot of people by surprise. And, you know, in your own family, there's an anecdote, isn't there, of falling foul of the Assad regime. Your mum was a TV presenter based in Washington, working for Syrian state TV, and her show suddenly got cancelled, and team members were fired because what? She didn't get prior permission for interviewing someone. What happened?
Such an interesting story. So this is back during a period that was dubbed the Spring of Damascus. You know, this was almost two and a half decades ago now. But for a little while, there was hope for change, for positive change. I think Bashar thought maybe we open up the society a little bit, create some minor reform, a lot of them were token reform, but most of that was stemming from fears as the Iraq war was ramping up. And he was concerned that the US operation would expand into Syria. So he wanted to do a few touch-ups to just make a point that, you know, he's pro-reform. Anyhow, my mother had a TV show called Transatlantic by contract with the Syrian national television, mainly to present or to interview Americans, align points of view, and bring the American perspective into Syrian society. It was a great idea, to be honest, and the show was doing pretty well till she visited Damascus and interviewed the US ambassador to Damascus. The interview was not controversial in any way, shape, or form. There was a conversation about peace in the Middle East. And I think the US ambassador was somewhat critical of the Syrian rule, and especially in the Israeli-Arab conflict. Not too critical, but he made a comment. Somehow, censorship did not notice that phrase. My mother came back to Washington. We were sitting, and this is back, you know, this is 2003, I think, around that time. We're watching on a small CRT monitor, you know, the very blurry web stream of the Syrian television. All of a sudden, you know, 10 minutes into the show, screen goes to black. Nothing. 4 hours. Nothing, then the broadcast resumes hours later. Obviously, we pick up the phone, we try to contact the people at the television, no answers, no, including the head of the television was not answering his phone. Next morning, we wake up to newspaper articles, specifically the Future newspaper out of Lebanon, the Hariri family's newspaper. And the headline was "A Massacre in the Syrian Television, 16 directors fired over this show." This is how ridiculous that regime has always been. You know, for a phrase uttered by an American ambassador that he's solely responsible for, they end up firing half of the television and obviously canceling my mother's show. You know. probably every moment in Syria had a token anecdote of oppression, censorship, and hostility toward the Syrian citizen by the government.
And Hazem, from that point onwards, did you and your mother refrain from going back to Syria? Did you feel it was dangerous for you to go back to Syria?
She never went back. She definitely did not go back. I went, once in 2010 for 8 hours for a wedding, and that was it for me as well. Unfortunately, it's a place that if you are even attempting to be an activist in that country in any way, shape, or form, you're rewarded by very bad memories, and memories that make it very hard to go back.
Okay, just watching what we've learned during these last 12 months, the prisons that have been opened, the documents that have surfaced and come to public attention. What do you think we've learned about the realities of the Assad regime? Just how bad were they as people?
I guess one of the best examples I've seen were the videos released by Arabiya the past few days of Bashar Assad's conversations with his advisor. The only parallel I can think of is Emperor Nero in the year 64, while Rome was burning, and he's just playing his fiddle. The detachment from reality. I mean, we're talking about the president of the country here, with his senior advisor, driving through the rubble that was a direct result of his actions. And he seems like a foreigner. He seems unaware or detached completely from what's happening. It's very, very, it's hard to explain, to be honest. This person felt no responsibility, no remorse, the conversation they were having as if he has no role in what happened or what's about to happen in the future. It's hard to understand. I think it's going to take years. And, as Syria engages further in the transitional justice, the work needed, obviously interviewing the commanders during that time, I don't think Assad had control at some point. He lost control. Probably around 2013, 2014, he was involved, but he did not lead the country anymore. The military security apparatus that he created or he supported started taking a greater role beyond what he can control at that point. It's very interesting. It's, but all of dictatorships end up this way. And people go back and ponder, how did such person oppress the masses? How did such incapable individual threaten the lives of millions, not only in Syria, but in neighboring countries as well? How did he become a drug kingpin at some point? All of these questions are very worthy of pondering.
Yeah, I mean, a lot has happened in the last 12 months. I mean, some of the most striking moments have been in May, seeing the new president of Syria, President Ahmed al-Shara, being embraced by President Trump in Riyadh, and then being invited to the White House in November. I mean, has all of that seemed a bit surreal to you as a Syrian national living in Washington, seeing the first ever Syrian president being invited into the Oval Office?
Well, it was surreal for me as a Syrian citizen and also a former senior advisor at the Department of State. The speed of which the transition of Syria, and especially the Syrian government, has had, specifically with the relationship with the United States, it's stunning. It's, we always said the U.S. government is like an aircraft carrier. You cannot just turn it quickly. It takes time and effort and work to maneuver. But we have to admit here that, and we have to thank actually the government of Saudi Arabia and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for his personal role and his government's role in helping Syria break out diplomatically. I mean, as you mentioned, the first meeting with President Trump happened in Riyadh. And we all know it's through direct request by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. It's that meeting, I think, set Syria on the course where, you know, not only President Ahmad Shara made it to Washington, but also enjoyed a very unique relationship with the largest and strongest country in the world right now. It's great. However, I think now that the sanctions are about to get fully lifted and the Caesar Act is about to be repealed, the real work begins in Syria. You know, where the Syrian people, whether in the country or abroad, are expecting quite a bit when it comes to education, political reform, social reform, economic reform, of course. I don't envy President Shara. His work is definitely cut out for him.
Okay, it certainly is. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. We're out of time now. Hazem AlGhabra, thank you very much indeed for your time, sir.